Good morning. I'm Brent Clanton, executive producer for the Lance Roberts podcast, with a midday update on what we're working on for you at Clarity Financial. First up, let's check in with our chief investment strategist, Lance Roberts.
So as we wrote about in this weekend's newsletter, we were talking about the markets had broken out a couple of weeks ago to all-time highs. And we had said at that time that what we needed was a pullback that didn't violate support in order to add some equity exposure to portfolios. And this level here was that level. Here was the breakout to all-time highs that moved us back above the January highs of this year. We came back on Friday and basically set right at the close, right at that support line. We did get through it just a little bit, came back up to it. That was good. This morning, we actually did here on Monday break out above that level. And currently right now, the markets are set up here. We are oversold on a very short-term basis. So at this point, this juncture here, we're going to be adding some additional exposure to portfolios. Now, we're not going crazy. Again, we were almost fully allocated anyway. But at this point here, it does potentially justify adding some equity risk as long as this level of support continues to hold for the markets. Now, this sets us up here potentially for a move up to about 3,000 on the index by the end of this year. So that's what we're looking at. There's not a lot of upside from here. The downside risk greatly outweighs the upside reward currently, but nonetheless, the markets are moving up, so we do need to get some exposure put into the markets. One of the areas that we're watching very closely, though, of course, is emerging markets, because emerging markets continue to really underperform. Even today, as we take a look at the markets as a whole, we're not seeing really much participation coming out of the international markets. In fact, they have continued to break down here after a recent rally that was back up to the 50-day moving average. They failed and have come back down to the lows again. If we look at emerging and international markets longer term, they have been a good leading indicator of potential problems in the markets because they're reflective of the global growth in the economy. And as we look at some of the international indicators on economic growth, those are indeed slowing. So while we're seeing some positive economic news in the U.S., the global economic risks are currently starting to kind of weigh on the markets as a whole. So this is one thing that we are looking at. So remember, as always, is that managing a portfolio is a lot like tending a garden, something that we wrote about more in this weekend's newsletter, and also be in our technical speaking post for tomorrow, is that, as this process goes on and as we worry about these risks, it's okay to add some money to portfolios, put some equity money to work, but also make sure and harvest the stuff that's not working well, sell your laggards and losers, reduce that overall risk in the portfolio currently. But that's what we're looking at today. And again, I'll have more for you tomorrow for Technically Speaking Tuesday, which will be on the website in the morning.
Thanks, Lance. Still to come, Jessica Lumbo is continuing to poke holes in the everything bubble. John Camurianos is looking into REITs and what's happening there. And Richard Rosso is preparing his next report on what you need to know about open enrollment season, which he views as your first line of financial defense. These stories and more will be found at realinvestmentadvice.com, where you can also register for this Wednesday evening Social Security workshop on claiming strategies for couples. Be sure to catch Lance Roberts' podcast this afternoon at 3 p.m. Central Time, streaming live on livestream.com, Facebook, and YouTube. All the links on our website, realinvestmentadvice.com. I'm Brent Clanton, executive producer. Thanks for watching.